Ready? Good afternoon. Today is Monday, June 14th. It is 5:07 p.m. and we are here for the regular trustee meeting. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have an agenda before us. Are there any additions or modifications?
Board, I have one. Executive session. I just need to add discipline, so it's considered employment, discipline, and compensation. It's already on your printed sheet. That was my mistake in just cutting and pasting.
So the 121.22G1 covers the employment and discipline?
Yes,
Okay.
employment, discipline, and compensation.
Okay.
I move to approve the agenda for the June 14th, 2021 meeting as amended.
Second?
Trustee Wallace?
Yes.
Trustee Dean?
Yes.
Trustee Kretz?
Yes.
I make a motion to accept the general ledger report in the amount of $382,659.25 for the June 2nd, 2021 payroll.
Second.
Trustee Dean?
Yes.
Trustee Wallace?
Yes.
Trustee Kretz?
Yes.
I make a motion to accept the payment listing report in the amount of $739,697.23 for warrants through 6/10/2021.
Second?
Trustee Wallace?
Yes.
Trustee Dean?
Yes.
Trustee Kretz?
Yes. And at this time, we open the
Minutes.
I'm sorry. We have minutes to go through. We have May 24th, 2021 regular trustee meeting minutes. Are there any changes or modifications?
I had none.
Hearing none, I'll make a motion to accept the May 24th, 2021 regular trustee meeting minutes.
Second?
Trustee Wallace?
Yes.
Trustee Dean?
Yes.
Trustee Kretz?
Yes. And at this time, we'll open the floor up to any citizens that are desiring to speak. Seeing no one here, we will move on to old business in the zoning commission case 819AX-1 update.
Thank you, Board. If you recall, I believe January or February when we did the rezoning and what parcels regarding the aviation support district. The board tasked me with coming back in June whether or not we could put easement language or some sort of easement on the parcel to the south that connects to Woodridge. I did speak to the airport manager last week regarding this and see where we're at, and unfortunately the FAA will not allow any type of easement on the property other than aviation easements, which they're already on there.
But the text amendment passed as presented, so there's nothing further essentially for the zoning commission or this board to approve.
That is correct.
Okay. So, yeah, it was just, okay. Any questions on the
No.
easement?
Nope.
Okay. No new business, so we'll advance to the Greene County Sheriff's Office report.
Thank you, Board. First item's on page 12 of your packet is the biweekly report, followed by on page 47 your monthly report. Sergeant Moore's here to answer any questions.
Sergeant Moore, anything new from as far as the soccer tournament that we had, as far as any updates or awareness items for future?
No, for future, it was a down year. I spoke with the folks there. Their numbers were down. But one of the things that they did, I don't know, we just commented and did a couple things, but they hired, they had a group come in that they paid to do the parking. And that worked out really well. Before, I think it was just, parents of a certain team, they were responsible for parking from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Then a new group came in from 10 to 11, and they had to do that to participate in the tournament. This was a group who ran it. They told people where to park, and it worked out as opposed to a lot of meandering, and which was slowing down the egress and ingress into the field. So that helped out a ton, and then they staggered the game time. So all reports that I heard was that it flowed very well, and it was
Okay,
I had a couple definitional questions.
go ahead.
Sergeant Moore, the animal complaint, was that just dog, or was there anything big animal around the township?
No, there's no big animal around the
Oh.
township. That was just,
Just checking. Someone had asked me something goofy, and I was like, well, I'll check and see
Big
if.
cat.
Can you define two things for me on the report? Civil TPO?
Civil TPO is a civil, temporary protection order that's
Okay.
issued by the court.
All right, thank you. And then what's SORN, S-O-R-N?
Sex Offender Registry Network, when a sex offender is, convicted or, and ordered by the court to register as a sex offender, it goes into the SORN network, which is a national database.
Right.
And it tracks all registered sex offenders. And as part of the sheriff's office, we have to, check on those individuals, make sure that they are in compliance, living and, where they say they're living. And, we have an obligation to check on those monthly. In some cases, other cases might warrant we check on them more often.
Thank you very much. Just be safe then.
Any other questions for Sergeant Moore?
Thank you.
Thank you. Be safe.
Thank you.
All right, HR.
Thank you, Board. Next item is on page 58 of your packet, the biweekly report for HR. Are there any questions?
I had no questions.
I had nothing. Thank you.
Nothing at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board. Next item's on page 61 of your packet. First thing we have is we have several zoning cases we have to schedule public hearings for. Case number 821, 822, 760-7. As you can see on page 62 of your packet, we are recommending case number 822 and 760-7 that we just scheduled at the end of the next meeting, your regular scheduled meeting, so the public hearing will be at the end, beginning at 6:30. Case number 821 is going to be a larger case, and we understand that there'll be most likely a lot of residents that will be coming out and speak, so that's the one I'm recommending, and staff is recommending that we have a special meeting to have and go over, and I'm assuming it will be down, not assuming, it will be down here. So, I have some dates if you want to throw them out. We have to give at least a 10-day notice by our zoning code.
Are we on the clock on that one as far as within 30 days, or we just have to make a decision within 30 days?
You have to
of when we
schedule the
meet?
meeting within 30 days. Yeah. You don't have to make a decision within 30 days. You have to schedule the meeting.
Or not make a decision,
Yeah.
sorry. We have to meet within 30 days.
Yeah.
So it's scheduled, or we have to meet within?
It's just you have to schedule it.
Okay.
Yeah. You don't have to meet within 30 days. You have to schedule it within 30 days.
So from the developers or landowners' perspective, though, should we do that sooner than later? As far as just other options that they have or may have?
Whatever date that, I think the developer is gonna go with any date the Board of Township Trustees schedule at this time. So some of the dates we were looking at were June 29th or 30th, July 14th or 15th, or July 19th or 20th.
At what time?
That's up to you. Normally we do public meetings starting at 7, when we used to do them, when we're doing specials. We could do them at 6:30, we could do them at 7:30, whatever the board pleases.
I'm good for any of
guessing there'll be
those.
a lot of public input, so.
So we have a July, is it 12th meeting? When's our
Yeah,
next-
July 12th is your regular trustee meeting.
Is there a reason we could do it after that? Or not?
You'll be here very late that night.
I mean, you control that to a certain extent.
True.
Right, we
Yeah.
control it.
Yeah.
The 14th and the 15th of July would be fine. Or what was the other, the 20th?
29th or 30th
You can't do the 15th.
of June.
So 15th's out, or July 19th or 20th.
Any of those July dates are fine with me.
What do you guys think of doing one marathon on a Monday combined? Normally these meetings are what, an hour and a half, and then there'd be a break. Or actually not, you'd go right into 6:30.
Yeah, you would have to post a date in the public meeting notice, so that's why, like for the other cases, we would just say 6:30. So if you get it done early at the trustee meeting, you would just take a break before the public hearing starts.
I guess the other question would be, what about moving it to, would, you have to have how much notice, 10 days?
10 days.
Yeah.
I really don't want it on the 12th, because I'm gonna be in a CE class
Okay,
from 8:30 to 4. So it's gonna be
so the other options, the week of the 12th were what? The
14th, 15th, 19th,
and
or
the 15th is out.
The 15th
I
out, so
can't be there the 15th.
it'll be July 14th,
So
19th.
14th, does that work for everybody?
14th is good with me.
That's fine.
14th,
So what time?
6:30,
6:30.
does that work, or?
Whatever time you want.
There's a motion to insert those on page 62.
I make a motion to schedule a hearing to consider zoning commission case number 821 to be held on July 14th at 6:30 p.m.
Second.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace,
Yes.
Trustee Kretz.
Yes.
Thank you, board. And then the next motion would just schedule the other two cases at 6:30 at your next regular scheduled meeting, which will be the June 28th meeting.
I move to schedule a hearing to consider zoning commission case number 822 and number 760-7 following our next scheduled meeting on June 28th, 2021 to begin at 6:30 p.m.
Second.
Second. Oh, sorry.
Trustee Wallace,
Yes.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Kretz.
Yes.
Before I forget about this other special meeting.
Thank you, board. Next item is the biweekly. Mr. McConnell's here to answer any questions.
Any awareness items, Mr. McConnell, as far as activity development, anything that we need to be aware of as far as concerns or potential grass fires?
Nothing that I'm currently aware of that looks like a major concern or grass fire. We're keeping an eye on, the typical long grass and those kind of zoning infractions that we see as the summer starts. We've got some great opportunities coming up. We met with a company that's maybe looking to relocate out here last week. So we'll be meeting with them and the developer next week. Very excited about that. And we will just be working on the long-term projects that I kind of outlined in my activity report, the omnibus update and the comprehensive land use plan update. It's kind of our main focus right now.
I had a question on and maybe Mr. Zahari, if you can answer it for me. On the comprehensive land use plan, why can't we just use MVRPC? Why do we have to hire a consultant also?
We will be working with Miami, but they will help us work with a consultant. So it's, for example, we reached out to Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission, said, hey, this is the things we want to do. They recommended hiring a consultant, but they will help us through the process to keep the cost down.
Okay. I just thought they'd help us do it so that we wouldn't have to pay for a consultant.
Yeah, that would be.
Nicer.
And that's what myself and staff were hoping for, but obviously, they're limited to, all their clients as opposed to just one.
Max, as far as the expectation that's being established, so always trying to manage expectations so that folks understand the lay of the land before they get to a meeting. So as far as I know, there's been a number of written emails and letters regarding the I guess case 821
Sure.
that'll be upcoming. So a lot of folks are requesting that those emails or letters be read into the record. And I would just ask that you coordinate with Ms. Frick to make sure that we're advising, we're properly informing people of the obligations of the board relative to reading everything into the record, just so that so their expectation, matches and follows kind of how we'll do things that evening, as far as at least what we're obligated to do. We may choose to do something different, but at least what we're obligated to do. Just if you can coordinate with Ms. Frick and make sure we've got a kind of a standard response, because I know trustees are receiving emails directly from residents and asking for things to be read into the record, and it'd be actually nice if we had just a standard response.
Well, the standard response that staff and myself have been giving is they will not be read into the record. They'll be a part of the record.
Sure.
So they'll be in a packet that you will receive. Now, the emails that staff has not received or you have not forwarded to will not be, those are directly to the trustees.
Sure.
If you want to forward those to staff, myself or Max, we'll make sure that it's part of the record.
Okay.
But there is no obligation by any statute or our zoning code that we sit here and read every letter. The issue we run into is, and I had a very long conversation with several residents on this, is if we read a 10-page paper that goes 15 minutes into the record as you sit here and read it, that is unfair to the residents that are limited to 3 minutes and speaking in a
Right.
meeting. So, and there's no obligation for any of it. Even, we do solicit public input, which is great, but there's not an obligation to read every email or correspondence received from residents. That's the idea of a public hearing, is to come and speak and either speak for or against, or just have questions regarding the project.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions for community risk or development of risk?
I had none.
I had none.
Thanks, Max.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Board. Next item's on page 73 of your packets, the biweekly IT report. Abraham's here to give you an update on a few projects, including, as you can see, phase 1, 2, and 3, 100% complete. So I'll turn it over to staff.
Perfect. Yeah, so are there any questions on the main IT biweekly report that I distributed?
So it's wonderful to see the 100% completion. That's great after seeing it for so long, but then it was not, so
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Awesome. Yeah, so just to touch base on that briefly and give more of a verbal report, that project is complete. The applications have been moved off the old infrastructure onto the new platform. We built 10 virtual machines to accommodate that. We're hearing reports from end users, particularly in the field, that they're seeing a greatly enhanced speed with different applications, which is what we want to hear. It's fantastic. Also, we're well on our way to remediating the non-IT related deficiencies in that room with proper redundant power. The secondary HVAC unit is on its way. And we have environmental monitoring in that room as well, so we get alerts when temperature changes and we can stay proactive on things like that. The phase we're moving into now in relation to this project is much more on the back end. It's about proper security enhancements that we'll be making for configurations, as well as engineering ways in which the data and applications can be operated in the most seamless, fast, and efficient way possible. So now that's on the new platform, we want to make sure it's operating on the new platform as well as it possibly can. I do want to say that our interactions with the entire township during this process has been wonderful, and it's not something we take for granted as far as the seamlessness and the continuity of that process. So thank you for that. Any questions on
I would
this?
just like to tour the mainframe when you have a chance.
Yeah.
To see what you guys have done in that room.
Certainly. A lot of the changes we've made have been on the software level, and so you may not see that reflected in the physical hardware until a little bit down the road, but we're more than welcome to show what we've done and cleaned up. So
He's still got hardware, excuse me, hardware that's still on its way, AC unit, and things
Correct.
like that. So
Correct.
that never arrived yet.
correct.
Well, Mr. Zaharias, how do you feel about this?
Staff is pleased. I've heard nothing but great comments on the new environment in regards to processing softwares that are on that are not up in the cloud, but on our system are performing at a high performance, a lot faster. So that's always good.
Good.
So especially for 24-hour crews that are accessing remotely to some of the softwares to enter the reports and things like that. So nothing but positive comments.
Great. Thank you.
Is there anything that we need these folks to do relative to Station 65, as far as, is there a scope of work defined there yet? And when will that be?
Staff's been working with them, so, and mostly it's, where we're putting connections and wiring and things like that. It's all budgeted, it's just getting their input and consulting of where we should put everything in there. There'll be an IT room up there, just like at the other stations as well.
Okay. All right. So as far as project backlog and what's coming next, what are the next projects as we wind down through these? What's next?
Yeah, so there will be, like I said, with some back-end things with efficiencies with the existing infrastructure and the applications. Station 65 is very front of mind for us, as well as down the road, we'll be looking at the network. We've looked at the servers, now looking at the network and making sure that we've implemented industry best practices in that environment. That's a project coming down the pike.
Okay. Okay, anything else? No? Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board. Next item is on page 76 of your packet, under the Road Department. First item is a job description and compensation schedule for fleet mechanic. This is a new position with certain standards, and we provided those standards in your packet in regards to emergency vehicle technician. This will not be a hired or an additional staff member in the road department. We will be taking an existing employee within the road department and putting them into this position, job description, and pay scale. Budget justifications on page 76 with all the information following EVT and the certifications on page 77. I know there's a lot there, as you can see with the amount of certifications required to work on emergency vehicles, followed by on 87, the job description. I will point out the job description has been reviewed and approved by legal.
And so do you anticipate at some point in the next 6 months having to backfill this position?
Turn that
No,
over
we
to
do not.
You do not, okay. Okay.
Any other questions?
There are motions on page 76.
I move to approve fleet mechanic job description as presented.
Second.
Trustee Wallace,
Yes.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Kretz.
Yes.
I make a motion to approve the compensation schedule for the fleet mechanic as presented.
Second.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace,
Yes.
Trustee Kretz.
Yes.
Thank you, Board. And on page 91 is the biweekly report for the road department. Are there any questions?
Well, I'd like to say, Mr. Parks, I think you did a great job on changing this position around, saving the township some money, and providing an incentive for somebody to excel higher goals in their current job description. It's nice when it's difficult in public service to move people up in the system and allow him to get the certifications that he needs to help us out on the fire. So I thank you very much. And I also want to thank you again I was at a funeral today, and the citizens again thanked us for moving those drop baskets at the library. And they were just all happy about that change being made and how convenient it is. So thank you again.
Thank you. You're welcome. And one of the things this position does is helps fire with their accreditation goal 6. I don't know if you've had time to read through that report that
Oh, yeah.
Chief gave you, but that was the ultimate goal, was to get to that point.
Questions?
Nothing for
Where do we stand, Mr. Parks, as far as winding up the cemetery project?
That was the question I had.
We are getting close. We are now working with Ms. Molden in finance to reduce some rules and set up a cemetery endowment fund, if you want to call it that. And then we're going to meet hopefully in the next 30 days to go over some of the discrepancies that were found and see where we head from there.
Okay. Okay. And when you say set up the endowment fund, meaning there is not one now?
No.
Okay.
There is one that came from, we're making the assumption it came when we, took it over from the church.
Okay,
But what we did back in 2017 when we raised pricing, everything over and above what we were charging in 17 was supposed to go into a separate fund.
sure,
That has not been done.
okay. Because when we took it, yeah, when we took it over from the church, that should, my understanding is that a private cemetery is required to have a 100-year endowment fund, essentially a 100-year maintenance plan. So, is that still correct, or is that?
I don't know the current rule.
I mean, obviously,
Yeah,
if
I'm not
it's,
sure what
if
the
it,
current
I don't
is,
know if
but I
it
know
was,
that normally that would,
I don't know
they
if
would
it was
have it.
turned over or if it was forfeited over because of.
Well,
not
that's the
being-
difference. We'll have to go back and look. In fact, just last week, myself and staff were going, looking for history and paperwork on it. You know, we're talking
Okay.
about a cemetery that, you know, early 1800s, even
Right.
late 1700s. So, we're looking for all that to see if you're correct. If, you know, it's turned over, there's a certain procedure for that. If it's, essentially, for the term I could come up with, it goes defunct, then it automatically falls to the jurisdiction by state law. So,
Right, that's why I just
so we're
wasn't-
trying to
I didn't know if
determine.
that one was
Yeah, we're trying to,
forfeited or.
right, we're trying to determine that to see, so that's,
Okay.
that's definitely going back and looking at some history. And that's mostly part of the delay of the project, is going back and finding all this information.
Okay. And there are no private cemeteries in the unincorporated area, correct?
There is,
There is.
there's a very large one,
Which one is it?
Valley.
Oh, okay.
Green Valley. Off of Valley Road,
Okay.
right by the airport.
And do we, receive any, oh yeah, I have a friend that's buried there, sorry. Do we receive any, periodic updates, either annually or anything like that, as far as the financial condition of those?
So, when I first got with the township, we did meet with them. However, a lot of things have changed for them. They changed directions on what they offer, so financially, we know they're doing a lot better.
Okay. I guess my question was relative, is there a state cemetery board or anything like that as far as, that would provide, that they have to report to, that could provide reports to us, rather than go to the individual?
I don't know if those are public record, but there is a
I
controlling
mean,
board.
there is a state cemetery
Yeah.
board, I would suspect that that probably is public
Yeah,
record.
we can
and-
look that
It
up.
might be.
I'm not sure what they have to report to them though, but I know that
I
there
thought
is a
they had to
cemetery
report
board.
their endowment, the health of their endowment fund, and the only reason I'm bringing this up is dealing with it in a different state. A cemetery that was not compliant, for years and falsified records, and then ultimately caused some other problems. So I don't know if that's something that, from a fiscal office standpoint, if you wanna put on a checklist, like a once a year, if the information's available, to at least ping it so you know the health of
That's a good point.
the private cemetery.
Okay. We'll definitely look at it.
Very good point.
Thank you, Mr. Parks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board. Next item is on page 92 of your packet, is the strategic plan and compliance report. Mr. Parks kind of mentioned it. The chief's here to answer any questions you have.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So this is our second annual compliance report. As a matter of course, there's no action required by the board. We have a simple motion because we do need to basically be able to show that it was presented to the board. Although, of course, we're happy to address any issues that you may see in it or answer any questions you have regarding it.
Anybody have a question or concern?
Well, I had some questions on the report itself. When did the goals start? I mean, it's a, go ahead,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
It started in 19 with the completion of the strategic plan, and they've been worked on from then until now, and will continue until the update. So they will continue through the accreditation process, through the standards to cover, and the remainder of the self-assessment. And the goals themselves do not change, even with those pieces, until we revisit it at the end of the 5-year period.
So on some of the goals, the objectives, some of them have not been started.
No, and we were actually given some fair warning. If you recall, this is one where we brought in SIPC to assist us because they are the professionals with it as far as the accreditation
process itself. And they gave us kind of fair warning that part of this first lift is identifying everything and then obviously prioritizing what we work on, which is what we've been doing. So there are some goals that haven't been started, there are some that have been completed, there's a lot that are in process. They said it is not uncommon for organizations to not complete all of their goals during the cycle, although we should have them all started and in some sort of process during this 5-year period.
Okay, so we still have time then to start some of these that have not been started on the objectives.
Absolutely, yes. As we check things off, we will continue to move on. Our goal is to get through as many of them as possible before we end this cycle and then begin it again. So worst case is they become higher priorities for the next cycle. Best case is we complete them all before the cycle is up. But in reality, what we'll probably have is hopefully a majority of them complete and the rest of them in some sort of process when we start the next cycle.
Because some of these, it says that they were to begin January 1st and be completed by the end of December, and yet some of them have not been started as at this time, which is 6 months out.
I think you can attribute most of that to, well, there's a saying I probably shouldn't share that my old boss had, but basically biting off more than we can chew. So with our regular workload and adding this to it, it takes longer than everybody anticipates.
Okay.
So all of our scheduling has ended up being a stretch schedule. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure. It'd be interesting to see what percentage of things were finished on time, and that's something that we hope to get better at as far as estimating how long these projects will take.
Great, thank you, Chief.
You're welcome. And really, the point of this report is to make sure that the board and it's transparent to you and the public, as well as to the folks in our organization. So the scheduling in particular was done with the gold champions and the groups that are working on it. So they're, on the hot seat as well and aware of where they're at. So it's so that everybody knows where we're at, and obviously we're making good strides in some areas and we have work to be done in others. But the big thing is we want to make sure that everybody is aware, and then we're holding ourselves accountable, not only to the organization, but to you, the public, as well.
Great.
Chief, just 2 comments. One, in some of these items, obviously, as you go through the process, you determine and you build a budget item for the following year. So obviously, the implementation can't occur until the budget item is presented and approved. So recognizing that, just as why some of these objectives cannot be completed yet because the budget item hasn't been finalized. The second thing I'd comment to is that if this is a report that goes out to the general public, as I'd say, in the next picture, make sure they look more excited about the process.
I think we were looking for serious and motivated.
Okay. They appear fairly attentive, but.
Well, good. I'll take attention.
Okay.
And I take it the ones that don't have somebody associated with the goal, same reason it hasn't started yet, that those will be assigned to someone in future once you get to that point.
Yes, as a matter of fact, we've had several leadership changes already in the roughly 2 years we've been working on it. Folks whose interests have changed, whose schedules have changed, or they're able to or not able to work. And really, as Mr. Kress kind of pointed out, there's a lot of interconnectedness with all of our other projects, and so there's a kind of a give and take, and folks may be more involved in something. For example, our SCBA project is taking a lot of time now. So if somebody had to choose between working on a strategic goal and the SCBA project with the time-limited piece for the grant period, they would focus on that. So there's definitely a give and take, which is kind of the micro prioritization that doesn't normally come up, even a lot of times to my level. The captains and the program managers are making sure that everything gets done in the most appropriate time blocks. So we try and give them as much flexibility as possible while holding them accountable to our overall goals.
Okay.
Any other questions? I move to acknowledge receipt of the 2021 Annual Compliance Report identifying the progress towards the strategic goals and objectives outlined in the Beavercreek Township Fire Department's 2019-2024 Strategic Plan.
Second.
Trustee Wallace?
Yes.
Trustee Dean?
Yes.
Trustee Kretz?
Yes.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Board. Next item is a request to purchase Operative IQ annual license. Budget justification starts on 92 with a motion on page 94. Chief's here to answer any questions.
And just as a reminder, Mr. Parks may have something to chime in here as well. This was a multi-department purchase. The fire department is kind of the largest user of it, just due to the nature of some of the requirements we have, administrative and legally for maintaining our processes, as well as trying to get some of our expenses under control long-term and understanding what we're spending on and where. But it does touch all the pieces of inventory, maintenance of the inventory. So not only do we have what we say we have and we know where it's at, but is it being maintained properly? What are those long-term maintenance costs and things like that? I know that the maintenance department uses it as well, and there's a major communication component between them. So we're presenting it, but really this is one of those programs that's used all the way through the township.
And just to add to that, when you do the resolutions to surplus equipment, that is all tracked in Operative IQ.
Is there any way we can get like a 3-year deal or a 5-year deal if we have to do this every year?
The rate's locked, is my understanding. Is the rate locked on this? I believe.
I
Makes
believe
sense,
it is,
yeah.
but I don't know how long the lock is, and I will find out if there is a longer-term option.
It's a per license.
We had a long-term option, and then this, I believe, carried that through. There's an increase because we increased the number of licenses because we're managing more and more with it. But the rate itself, I believe, it is the original locked rate, but I can verify that through the board.
Yeah, I believe when we first passed this, that we locked that in, that rate for long term. But the price increase is based on the additional license.
But as far as management of physical assets, you're not RFID tagging devices or pieces of equipment, are you?
We have experimented with it, but we have not implemented it full scale. And it's one of those things where every time we try, it seems like the salespeople have oversold the technology, at least for our environment. It may make sense in, say, retail store where stuff is sitting on a shelf and then leaving that way, but it's been much harder for getting it where it's out in the field. We have multi-distribution from coming into Station 61 where the inventory is handled, kind of warehouse, out to our stations and then out onto the apparatus. So again, we've tried it, but we haven't figured out. And actually, I think barcoding was our last big effort,
Right.
Not RFID. RFID, one of the sales pitches that is intriguing, but I've not seen it work yet, is set up so that, for example, when an engine pulls out of a bay, it is inventoried as it pulls out, and then when it backs back in, it's re-inventoried,
Right.
and then you get a summary of what's changed, added, subtracted, that sort of thing. But we've yet to see that work well in a practical environment, at least at a cost that we would be able to afford. So right now, the inventory is still Mark 1 eyeball. So you go out, you look at the piece, it's there, and then it's documented into the system, as opposed to any sort of electronic scan.
So if you look on the back of your devices, you'll see that the asset tags, there's 2 different colors that we use. So obviously, if you look around the room, there's some things in here that are red asset tags, and we know that's fire. Everything else is green.
Okay.
Yeah, and as far as the barcoding, we implemented that in maintenance for the monthly supplies. So they're barcoded in, scanned on an iPad, and when they leave, they're scanned on an iPad, and it's all dumped electronically into Operative IQ. So it takes the human factor for us out of it.
Other than the scanning.
other than the scan.
Right. So that was the only question as far as the RFID. That technology continues to evolve. I'm dealing with a company that RFID tags manhole covers for the city of Chicago. Because people steal manhole covers, so they can track down to where that manhole cover went after that. But there's obvious technology. You have to ask yourself, what problem are you trying to solve before you spend the time and effort to do it. So if you don't have a problem, then don't waste money and time trying to solve something that's not a problem. So, but I didn't know what the frequency is, just in two different situations of having appliances delivered to a property in the last week, both sets of delivery folks left tools behind, of their own tools. And so I didn't know how often that actually occurs or happens, or if we even know until a day later when we need the tool, whether it be at roads or be it fire, if there's a need first, if there's a problem with that.
Fire is probably different than roads, but our protocol is before you leave a scene, an inventory is done, a basic inventory is done to make sure that all the big stuff is back on the truck. So ladders, axes, bags, SCBA, hose, all of that. Then when you get back to the station, it's a little more in-depth. So you open up the bags and you make sure the bag itself is back. And in that case, it's much more about preparedness for the next incident and less about overall, do we have everything? And then the second piece is for the bigger things like hose in particular, is do we have the right ones? So do we have our hose or do we have Station 62's hose? Or is this, Station 64's axe and they have ours? And axe is not a good example because we break our inventory into generic and itemized pieces. Itemized pieces are the things that would have typically like a serial number. Those we track to the unit. Otherwise, axes are axes. We don't care who has which one as long as we each have one, for example. But air packs, life packs, Lucas devices, those sorts of things, drug bags, those are all tracked to the apparatus. So if one's missing, you know who's missing it, and then you can go about trying to find where it's at.
Okay. Any other questions on?
I have no other questions on the operative IQ.
We got a purchase request.
I make a motion to approve purchase request 21-fire-0851 to EMS Technology Solutions LLC for 12-month service of operative IQ inventory and assist management application in the amount of $22,512 and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Trustee Dean?
Yes.
Trustee Wallace?
Yes.
Trustee Krutz?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. Next item is the COVID-19 impact, followed by, Station 65 update, followed by COVID, and then the biweekly.
So probably the one big change you'll notice there is on the work schedule. It is still on schedule. We lost a couple days due to weather last week, but those are exterior days. You're able to keep working interior, obviously, and that's our critical path for completion. So they don't anticipate any issues getting the station completed on time. The good news budget-wise was, as pointed out there after our long discussion about countertops and surfaces, the actual cost came in substantially under the not-to-exceed amount. So about 75% of the not-to-exceed amount. So we're very happy with that and moving forward with it. And then I included some information just as a follow-up to our appliance discussion at the last meeting. I'll be happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Thank you, Chief, for adding that information.
I learned a few things on this one, so.
Good.
Yep.
Any other questions?
I had nothing additional.
I had nothing additional on any of the rest of the report.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, and as I pointed out there, I will not be providing any additional updates on COVID unless there's something that the board would specifically like to see. It's essentially unchanged for the past several weeks, and I don't anticipate that changing. So if anything does, we'll be certain to bring it some bulk inventory that we know we want to have for possible future incidents, but then how do we manage it such that we don't end up with stale inventory? Or if we do, it should be a managed sort of staleness where it's something's better than nothing, but we definitely don't want to have stuff rot on a pallet for the sake of a pandemic that may never come. So we are working through those issues, and as we kind of reach decision points on those, we'll be sure to keep the board up to date.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board. That's all I have.
Ms. Frick,
I don't have anything.
Mr. Rushing,
I have nothing this evening, thank you.
MVRPC.
We had a meeting, it went very well. We're going to have our first in-person meeting in August. And anything that was given to us, I forwarded to the board.
TAC.
Nothing to report.
Greene County Regional Planning, we have executive committee tomorrow afternoon. There's nothing Beavercreek Township on the slate. And just as an FYI, we received a letter from Mr. Shoemaker resigning from his position as executive director. And so his last day will be June 28th. So. Health Department.
We had a meeting on the 3rd. Nothing to report.
Schools, city manager.
City manager and I have been discussing the joint meeting with the city of Beavercreek. It's their turn to host. We are, with all the activity we have going on in August, I suggested that we look at September. If it works for the city, I'll come back with a date, but it'll be the in-between meetings. It'll be their work session, which will be the 3rd Monday of the month, and we'll start at 5 o'clock if we can make that date work. I didn't meet with the superintendent, but I did have a meeting with the Greene County Career Center superintendent, talking about some of their programs and outreach programs in the local jurisdictions, including Beavercreek City Schools. And they do, because of COVID, unfortunately, as we know, they have a new facility, and it was opening up in the middle of the pandemic. They do plan in this fall to have kind of an official grand opening for the students with no restrictions, and for the community as well. And nothing on right path.
Greene County Township, we had a meeting last Tuesday at Gordon and Jill Dwyer's farm. It went real well. MVRPC did a presentation. Our next meeting is July 13th at Cedar Creek Winery.
Kudos to the Township Association. That was a very nice event that you put on, actually.
Thank you.
And MVRPC gave a very informative, high-level overview. It was great. Investment Oversight Committee, I had nothing new to report unless Mr. Rushing had something.
No, Huntington will be a pre-scheduled speaker next meeting.
Yep.
Great.
Tell them to bring higher interest rates.
Bring it to the table. There you go.
If there's nothing else to come before the board, we'll entertain a motion to go into executive session under Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G1 to consider the employment, discipline, and compensation of public employees.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Wallace,
Yes.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Krutz.
Yes. All right. It is 7:06 p.m. We have a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
Second?
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Wallace.
Yes.
Trustee Krutz.
Yes. Is there any other business to come before the board? Do we need to schedule any meetings?
I can put the public meeting notice out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Trustee Wallace,
Yes.
Trustee Dean,
Yes.
Trustee Krutz.
Absolutely.